something sad happens, and warm salt water leaks out of the holes in your face. Stop and think about how strange that actually is. You are a mammal, and when your feelings get intense enough, grief, joy, anger, overwhelm, your body's response is to produce liquid and let it run down your cheeks. No other animal on Earth does this. Not one. Your dog doesn't, your cat doesn't. Chimpanzees, our closest relatives, sharing almost all of our DNA, they feel grief, they feel loss, and they do not shed a single emotional tear. You and every human who has ever lived are the only creatures on this planet that cry from feelings. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Charles Darwin himself looked at emotional crying and declared it purposeless, an accident. And for 150 years, nobody could prove him wrong. We are the only species that does the single most human thing there is, and for most of history, science had no idea why. Now, we need to be precise here because there's a trap in this question. All animals make tears. That part is normal. Your eyes are covered in a thin film of liquid at all times, basal tears, that keeps them from drying out. And every animal produces reflex tears. Get an eyelash or a puff of onion gas in your eye and it floods to wash the irritant away. That's plumbing. Every creature with eyes has it. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the third kind, emotional tears. Tears that come from a feeling and nothing physical at all. And those exist in exactly one species. So the mystery isn't why do eyes make water? It's much sharper than that. Why did evolution take a basic eye cleaning system and wire it directly into your emotions in humans and in absolutely nothing else? Because a trait this weird, this unique, and this energetically pointless doesn't survive for millions of years unless it's secretly doing something. And it took until very recently to figure out what. Let's start with a fact that surprises almost everyone. Your emotional tears are not the same liquid as your other tears. They have a different recipe. If you collect the tears from someone chopping an onion and the tears from someone crying at a funeral and put them under analysis, they're chemically different. Emotional tears contain significantly more protein. They carry higher levels of stress hormones. The body appears to be literally flushing out chemicals it produced under stress. And they contain natural painkillers, including one that works like the body's own opioid, which raises an immediate strange possibility. Are you, when you cry, chemically dumping stress out of your body, draining it like a release valve? A lot of people feel better after a good cry, and this looks like it might be why. And there's a second clue hidden in your own brain. All three types of tears come out of the same glands, but only one type is wired to your emotions. Reflex tears and basal tears are automatic plumbing. Emotional tears are controlled by the hypothalamus, a deep brain region that governs your emotional responses. So this isn't a quirk of the eye. Your brain built a dedicated line from your emotional core straight to your tear glands. That is not an accident. Evolution does not lay down special wiring for something purposeless. Someone, somewhere in our past, benefited enormously from leaking when they felt things. The question is, who was supposed to see it? To find the answer, start where crying starts, at the very beginning of every human life. A newborn human is the most helpless creature in the animal kingdom. It can't walk, can't cling, can't feed itself, can't flee, can't do anything except lie there and need. Compare that to a baby horse standing up within an hour of birth, or a baby ape gripping its mother's fur and hanging on. A human infant is, by animal standards, absurdly, dangerously useless for years. So it has exactly one tool. It can signal. A crying baby is a survival machine. That sound, and crucially those visible tears streaming down a red scrunched face, is an alarm that an adult human is almost physically incapable of ignoring. It reaches into the caregiver's brain and pulls. It says, "I am in distress. I cannot help myself. Come now." And it works because it's honest. This is the key idea. A baby can't fake helplessness the way it could fake a smile. Tears are a hard signal to counterfeit. They well up on their own, triggered by a brain region you don't consciously control, which makes them believable. When you see real tears, some ancient part of you accepts that the distress is real. That's the origin. Tears began as the unforgeable distress signal of a helpless infant. But here's where it gets interesting, because you're not an infant anymore, and you still cry. Most baby signals fade as you grow up. You stop wailing for food. You stop needing to be carried, but the tears never went away. A 40-year-old still cries. At a funeral, at a wedding, at a piece of music, alone in a car. Why would evolution keep such a costly, vulnerable signal switched on for your entire life? Because you never actually stopped being dependent on other people. Not for a single day. Humans are the most social species on the planet. We don't survive as individuals, we survive in groups, tribes, families, teams. And in a group, the ability to tell each other how you truly feel is not a luxury. It's the machinery that holds the group together. And most Most of our signals, words, smiles, tone, can be faked. Tears can't. Not easily. That's what makes them so valuable. An emotional tear is an honest broadcast of your inner state, sent to the people around you, that is extremely hard to fake. It cuts through all the social performance and says, "This is real. I am really overwhelmed. This really matters to me. And this has been measured, not just guessed." In controlled studies, researchers showed people photographs of faces, the exact same faces, some with tears digitally added, some with the tears removed. And the reaction flipped completely. Faces with visible tears were judged as more helpless, as needing connection, and, this is the important part, people reported being far more willing to help them. The same face minus the tears didn't get the same response. Tears literally pull support out of the people who see them. So an adult crying isn't a leftover baby reflex misfiring. It's the same ancient tool, still doing the same job, reaching into another human's brain and activating care. When you cry in front of someone you trust, you are, at a biological level, doing exactly what you did as a newborn, signaling, "I need you," and their brain answers before they can even think about it. Seeing your tears lights up the same circuits that process their own pain. That's empathy, firing automatically. Crying is how one nervous system reaches directly into another and says, "Help me hold this." But this brings us straight back to the paradox in the title. Other animals are social too. Wolves live in packs, elephants grieve their dead, chimps live in intense, complicated tribes. They have feelings, they have bonds, they clearly suffer loss. So why don't they cry? This is where it gets genuinely deep, and honestly, where the science gets less certain. So I'll be straight with you about what we know and what we're guessing. The leading idea is that emotional tears are tied to something humans have and other animals don't have in the same way. A face built for broadcasting emotion, and a society built on reading it. Remember, we're the species that lost its fur and put its bare, expressive face on display. We're the species whose eyebrows became communication tools, whose faces evolved to be readable across a distance. We became, over hundreds of thousands of years, exquisitely tuned to each other's faces. And a tear is a visual signal. It only works if you're a creature that looks at faces and reads them for meaning. A wolf reads the world through smell. An emotional tear would be nearly useless to a species that communicates through scent and posture. But for a species that stares into each other's faces to figure out what's going on inside, a visible marker of overwhelming emotion is suddenly incredibly powerful. There may be another piece too. Humans are unusually cooperative even with strangers. We help people we're not related to, people we'll never see again. In that kind of society, an honest signal of need, one that reliably triggers compassion in a total stranger, is worth a great deal. Tears might be part of the same package that made us the friendliest, most cooperative ape, a species that domesticated its own aggression and learned to care for each other. We can't prove all of this. Crying is famously hard to study. You can't ethically make people grieve in a lab. But the shape of the answer is becoming clear. We cry because we became the animal that lives and dies by what other faces feel about us. Now, if this were the whole story, tears are a social distress signal, it would be tidy. But crying refuses to be tidy, and the leftover mysteries are some of the most human things about it. First, you cry when you're happy. You cry at a wedding, at a reunion, when your team wins, when something is unbearably beautiful. If tears are a distress signal, why do they show up at the best moments of your life? The leading guess is that tears track overwhelm, not sadness. Any emotion intense enough to exceed your capacity to hold it. Joy that big is just as overwhelming as grief. Your system floods either way. Second, you cry alone. If crying is a signal meant for other people, why do you do it by yourself? In an empty room, where no one can see. Maybe the chemical release valve is real after all, draining stress hormones even with no audience. Or maybe the wiring is just so deep it fires whether or not anyone's watching. Third and strangest, some people barely cry at all, and we know almost nothing about them. When one researcher went on the radio and asked people who never cry to contact him, he was flooded with responses from people who genuinely can't remember the last time they shed a tear, and felt no less emotion because of it. Science has spent its effort on the wet eyes and almost completely ignored the dry ones. We don't understand them at all, which means the single most human act there is, the thing that separates us from every other animal, is still, in important ways, an open question. We know it's a signal, we know it's honest, we know it pulls care out of other people, but the full picture of why you specifically leak salt water when a song hits you right, we're still working that out. So, the next time it happens, the lump in the throat, the sting, the warmth spilling over, here's what's actually going on. A system that started as the unforgeable alarm of a helpless newborn that you never grew out of is firing. Your hypothalamus, the emotional core of your brain, is reaching down a dedicated line to your tear glands and releasing a signal you cannot fully fake and cannot fully control. A signal that says, to anyone who sees it, this is real. I'm overwhelmed. I need you. You are the only animal that does this. Not because your feelings are deeper than a grieving elephant's or a mourning chimp's. They may not be. But because you evolved into a creature whose entire survival ran through other faces. You became so dependent on being cared for and so good at caring for others that your body grew a special channel to broadcast your inner state directly onto your face in a form no one could counterfeit. Darwin thought it was purposeless. He was looking at it backwards. Crying isn't a malfunction of an animal that got too emotional. It's the signature of an animal that survived by needing each other so completely that it evolved a way to make its own pain visible and to feel a stranger's pain as if it were its own. Every other animal keeps its inner world locked inside. You are the one that leaks it on purpose so that someone else can help you carry it, and you never even knew that's what the tears were for.